Influencer: The Power to Change Anything, by Kerry Patterson, Joseph Grenny, David Maxfield, Ron McMillan, and Al Switzler. Ever feel like you're banging your head against a wall? You know, when there's something in your life that just won't budge, no matter what you try. Maybe it's a habit you can't kick, a relationship that's stuck in the same frustrating loop, or a problem at work that keeps showing up like an unwanted guest. You've tried talking about it, pushing harder, maybe even pretending it doesn't exist. But there it is, still stubbornly refusing to change. Here's where most of us end up. We throw our hands in the air and decide, well, that's just how it is. We convince ourselves that some things simply can't be changed. We start looking for peace by accepting our limitations, instead of pushing past them. But what if the difference between what you can change and what you can't isn't about having more courage or grinding through with sheer willpower? What if it's actually about having the right skills? That's exactly what Influencer: The Power to Change Anything is all about. The same team that wrote the hit book Crucial Conversations went on a fascinating detective mission around the world, tracking down people who've pulled off changes that seemed downright impossible. We're talking about people who've wiped out diseases, turned violent criminals into successful citizens, stopped deadly epidemics in their tracks, and rescued failing companies from the brink of disaster. Here's the kicker: these aren't superheroes with special powers. They're regular people who cracked the code on something extraordinary, the science of influence. They figured out that even the hairiest, most stubborn problems usually come down to changing just a handful of specific human behaviors. And they've developed a reliable playbook for making that change happen, not through lucky breaks or natural charisma, but through strategies anyone can learn and use. In the time we'll spend together, I'm going to walk you through what these master changemakers discovered. Forget the idea that a good pep talk or clever argument is enough to change anything important. We're going deeper than that. By the time we're done, you'll understand the framework these people use, a powerful model built on 6 distinct sources of influence. You'll see why pumping someone up with motivation often falls flat if you don't also give them the tools they need. You'll learn how to spot those few critical actions, the vital behaviors that unlock massive change, and how to tap into forces you might never have thought about, from what your friends think to how your physical space is set up. This isn't about tricking people or pushing them around. It's about understanding the powerful currents that drive human behavior and learning to work with them instead of fighting against them. The goal? Creating positive, lasting change in your own life, your relationships, and maybe even rippling out to touch the wider world. So get comfortable, stay curious, and let's dive into the power to change anything. Let me tell you about something that sounds too wild to be true. Picture yourself in San Francisco, pulling up to what looks like a really nice apartment complex. It runs several thriving businesses: restaurants, moving companies, auto repair shops. Nothing unusual, right? Except the people living and working here have backgrounds that would make most of us nervous. The founder, Dr. Mimi Silbert, doesn't sugarcoat it. Thieves, prostitutes, robbers, and murderers. Many are third-generation gang members, with rap sheets full of felonies, years spent on the streets, and lifelong struggles with addiction. Now here's where it gets mind-blowing. Delancey Street Foundation has no therapists on staff besides Dr. Silbert herself. No professional counselors. No government grants funding it. No guards watching over anyone. Yet over 3 decades, it has taken in 14,000 people with these incredibly challenging backgrounds, and more than 90% of those who complete the program never go back to drugs or crime. They get degrees, they become professionals, they completely remake their lives. So what's happening here? Dr. Silbert isn't working miracles. She's mastering the principles of influence we're about to explore. Her success shines a light on where most of us stumble when we try to create change. We fall into what the authors call the serenity trap. We try something once or twice, it doesn't work, and we quickly conclude, well, I guess that's just impossible. We start seeking peace by accepting the situation, when maybe we just haven't learned the right approach yet. The world is packed with problems, from personal struggles to massive global crises, that someone, somewhere, has actually solved by refusing to give up and instead learning how to make a real difference. The authors make a compelling case. Most problems we face aren't actually impossible. They just require getting people to behave differently. And yeah, changing human behavior is tough, but it's not some mystical art. It's a science that's been developed over decades by researchers and practitioners who've gotten really good at it. Whether we realize it or not, we're all influencers every single day, constantly trying to shape behavior in ourselves and others. The problem: most of us are working with a really limited toolbox, usually just trying to say the right things persuasively enough. We think the perfect words, delivered with enough passion, should do the trick. But honestly, when was the last time a lecture actually changed someone's deep habit? How often does nagging someone stop them from scarfing down that burger? Almost never. Real influence takes a lot more. The authors studied these influence masters from around the world. People like Dr. Silbert, people who stopped epidemics, wiped out diseases, turned companies around, and discovered they all shared a common approach. And it starts not with how to influence, but what to influence. This gets us to the first game-changing insight: find vital behaviors. Most huge, complicated-looking problems actually hinge on just a few high-impact actions. Change those few vital behaviors, and the whole problem can start to unravel. Think about Dr. Wiwat Rojanapithiakorn in Thailand during the terrifying explosion of the AIDS epidemic in the late 80s and early 90s. The initial efforts tried the obvious approach: posters everywhere, celebrity PSAs, education sessions, basically telling people about the danger. Makes sense, right? Fight ignorance with information. But it was a spectacular failure. The infection rate actually got worse. Dr. Wiwat had a realization. The awareness campaign was focused on an outcome: understanding the threat, not a behavior, what specific action to take. He dug into the data and found something crucial. 97% of new infections were coming from heterosexual contact with sex workers. Thailand had a massive sex trade industry, even though it was officially sort of unacknowledged. This gave him laser focus. The problem started in the brothels, so the solution had to be found there too. He identified one vital behavior. If 100% of sex workers required their clients to use condoms, the epidemic could be almost completely stopped. That became the entire strategy. Not vague awareness, but one specific measurable action. And incredibly, by focusing relentlessly on enabling and motivating that single behavior, new infections dropped by 80% within just a few years, saving an estimated 5 million lives. Notice how powerful that is. It wasn't about changing everything under the sun. It was about finding the few things that mattered most. Dr. Silbert at Delancey Street discovered the same principle. Working with ex-cons who lacked almost every life skill you can imagine, she knew trying to fix 20 things at once was a recipe for failure. She zeroed in on just 2 vital behaviors to break what she calls the code of the street, which is basically only care about yourself, never rat on anyone. First vital behavior: require each person to take responsibility for someone else's success. Second, demand that everyone confronts everyone else about every single rule violation. By focusing all her influence efforts on just these 2 actions, a whole cascade of positive changes in values, attitudes, and outcomes followed naturally. So how do you actually find these vital behaviors? The authors suggest several methods. Study the best. Look for solid research that scientifically compares top performers with average ones to identify the specific actions that make the difference, like Dr. Ethna Reed did with teachers. Don't just rely on people's stories or brainstorming sessions. Look for positive deviance. Find people or situations where the problem should exist but mysteriously doesn't. Then figure out what unique behaviors they're using. This is what Dr. Donald Hopkins and his team at the Carter Center did when tackling guinea worm disease in Africa. They found villages without the disease sitting right next to heavily infected ones and discovered simple, local solutions, like filtering water through cloth from skirts. Identify recovery behaviors. People will mess up. That's guaranteed. What vital behaviors help them bounce back quickly instead of spiraling downward? For guinea worm, It was neighbors speaking up if someone got infected and making sure that person stayed away from the water source. For someone trying to diet, like the author's example Henry, it might be learning not to see one slip-up as total failure, but as useful information for adjusting course. Test your conclusions, especially with positive deviance, where you're observing and drawing conclusions. You need to test whether the behaviors you identified actually cause the results you want. Teach them to other people and see if things improve. Run little experiments. Alright, so you've identified your vital behaviors. Now comes the part everyone thinks influence is really about: changing minds. Before people change their behavior, they have to want to. They need to believe the new behavior is both worthwhile and actually possible for them to pull off. The legendary psychologist Albert Bandura, whose work forms the foundation of much of influence theory, showed us why simply telling people to change their minds rarely works for tough problems. Think about his famous snake phobia studies. People had paralyzing, irrational fears of snakes. Would a lecture about snake safety cure them? Of course not. They needed to change their deep-seated belief that snakes equal danger. Bandura discovered the most powerful mind changer is personal experience. Actually touching the snake and seeing nothing bad happen was the ultimate cure. But you can't always force personal experience on people. So what's the next best thing? Vicarious experience. Watching someone else do it safely. Bandura had people with phobias watch a therapist handle the snake, step by step, gradually reducing their fear until they could try it themselves. This cured lifelong phobias in just hours. This tells us something crucial. For resistant problems, ditch the lectures and debates. Instead, find ways to give people direct experience, or create powerful vicarious experiences. This is where stories become incredibly powerful. Remember Miguel Sabido's soap operas in Mexico? His show, Ven Conmigo, didn't lecture viewers about literacy. It told compelling stories of characters struggling with illiteracy, and then finding empowerment through adult education programs shown right in the storyline. The result? 250,000 people flooded the streets seeking those literacy booklets. Why? The story created a vicarious experience. Viewers felt what the characters felt, struggled alongside them, and celebrated their triumphs. Well-told stories work better than logical arguments because they improve understanding. They provide concrete details and context that abstract arguments completely lack. Words can be easily misunderstood, but stories create shared mental pictures. Increase belief. When we hear a good story, we often suspend our skepticism and transport ourselves into the narrative, bypassing our usual defenses. Stories about real people can feel way more credible than dry statistics. Motivate action. Stories engage our emotions. We don't just understand what the characters are going through, we empathize with them, thanks to things like mirror neurons in our brains that fire as if we were experiencing it ourselves. This emotional connection fuels the desire to actually do something. But watch out. To be effective, stories need to be complete. The Scared Straight program failed because it only showed kids how awful prison was. It didn't convince them their current actions would actually land them there. Stories also need to offer hope and a clear path forward, not just fear. Showing people pictures of rotting gums didn't make them floss more unless they were also shown how to effectively care for their teeth. And sometimes a story is just the first step to invite someone into a personal experience. Dr. Don Berwick uses the heartbreaking story of Josie King, a little girl who died in a top hospital from dehydration, despite her mother's desperate pleas, not just to make hospital leaders feel bad, but to prompt them to investigate preventable deaths in their own facilities. That personal detective work transforms abstract statistics into human tragedy and really fuels change. So we've got vital behaviors, and we've got strategies for changing minds through experience and stories. But the real engine of influence, the framework that ties everything together, is understanding the 6 sources of influence. The authors argue that virtually all forces shaping our behavior fall into a simple grid: motivation versus ability, crossed with personal, social, and structural levels. To solve persistent problems, you can't just rely on one source. You need to diagnose all the forces at play and likely deploy strategies across multiple sources to make success almost inevitable. Let's break down these 6 sources. Source 1. Personal motivation. Make the undesirable desirable. Do people personally find the vital behavior satisfying, or do they hate doing it? If they hate it, you'll be constantly pushing them uphill. How do you change that? Connect to intrinsic satisfaction. Sometimes people just haven't experienced the potential pleasure yet. Like Dr. Silbert making Delancey residents try museums and opera. You can hate Chinese food, but not until after you've had it. Often, trying something leads to liking it. Making it a game, with clear goals and feedback, can also make tedious tasks genuinely engaging. Think about the concept of flow. Honor choice. You can't force someone to change their heart. William Miller's work on motivational interviewing shows that helping people explore their own values and goals, rather than imposing yours on them, is far more effective, especially when dealing with resistance or addiction. Replace judgment with empathy. Lectures with questions. Source 2. Personal ability. Surpass your limits. Do people actually have the skills needed to do the vital behavior? Often we mistake inability for lack of motivation, the classic fundamental attribution error. And even when we recognize a skills gap, we underestimate how much real practice is needed. Key insights here. Much of will is actually skill. Walter Mischel's famous marshmallow studies initially suggested willpower was a fixed trait. Some kids just had it, others didn't. But later work with Bandura showed that kids could learn delay tactics, like distraction techniques, from watching others, which dramatically improved their supposed willpower. Self-control is often a learnable skill. Much of prowess is practice. Anders Ericsson's research shatters the myth of innate talent. Elite performance in almost any field comes from deliberate practice. Focused, demanding practice on skills you haven't mastered yet, with immediate feedback, often broken into mini-goals. This applies just as much to soft skills, like having crucial conversations, essential for those Thai sex workers negotiating condom use, or nurses challenging doctors, as it does to sports or music. Master emotions. Our hot emotional reactive system, hello amygdala, often hijacks our cool, rational, thoughtful system, frontal lobe, at critical moments. We need skills to manage this. Distraction techniques, like those marshmallow kids used. Arguing back against our feelings, cognitive reappraisal, labeling our cravings to reduce their power, delaying impulses, breaking overwhelming tasks down into smaller pieces, and focusing on process goals we can control. Source 3. Social motivation. Harness peer pressure. Do other people encourage the right behaviors or actively discourage them? This force is incredibly powerful. Stanley Milgram's shocking obedience experiments showed people would administer what they believed were lethal electric shocks, just because an authority figure in a lab coat told them to. But he also found that the presence of just one other person defying the authority figure caused obedience to drop dramatically. Key strategies. Engage formal leaders, bosses, parents, teachers. Their approval or disapproval carries immense weight. Find and partner with opinion leaders. Everett Rogers. Research on how innovation spread showed that most people, the majority, won't adopt a new idea until respected and well-connected peers, the opinion leaders, do it first. Don't waste time on the innovators, those quirky early adopters nobody really listens to. Focus on finding and enlisting the trusted influencers. Dr. Hopkins used village chiefs and respected locals for guinea worm efforts. Mao used, quote, barefoot doctors. You need to identify, genuinely listen to, and partner with these key people. Become an opinion leader yourself. Build your knowledge and trustworthiness in your area, and stay connected to people. Attack negative norms. Sometimes the problem is a widespread, unspoken agreement to do the wrong thing, like the Project Chicken game where everyone lies about deadlines, or people stay silent about problems like low productivity or hospital safety violations. You need to make the undiscussable discussable, often using stories or hard data, to break the conspiracy of silence. Create a supportive culture. For deep transformation like what happens at Delancey, immerse people in a completely new social environment where everyone constantly reinforces the vital behaviors through feedback, celebration, and accountability. Source 4. Social ability. Find strength in numbers. Do other people provide the help, information, or resources needed to make the vital behavior easier? This is about social capital. Muhammad Yunus built Grameen Bank's incredible success on this principle. He didn't just hand out loans. He required borrowers to form small groups, where they worked together to create business plans and, crucially, co-signed for each other's loans. This tapped into the wisdom of crowds and mutual support. When do you need social ability? When others are part of the problem. If peers, bosses, or family members are currently making the right behavior harder, like colleagues encouraging that Project Chicken game or neighbors turning a blind eye to spousal abuse, you need to flip them into enablers. Garth Jaffet's Soul City used TV drama to show neighbors how they could safely intervene in domestic violence by banging pots and pans, turning bystanders into allies. Interdependence. When success requires coordinated action like just-in-time manufacturing, people need the skills and trust to collaborate effectively. Novelty and risk. When facing new or risky challenges, multiple perspectives and mutual support become essential, like brainstorming sessions or Delancey residents mentoring each other through high-stakes job situations. Blind spots. We often can't see our own mistakes. Real-time coaching and feedback from others are invaluable for developing skills. Group solidarity. Some changes only work if everyone participates, the classic tragedy of the commons problem. Dr. Wiwatt's 100% condom policy required all sex workers and all brothels to comply, or clients would just go to the places that didn't enforce it. Source 5. Structural motivation. Design rewards and demand accountability. Do things, like salaries, bonuses, or performance reviews, encourage the right behaviors or inadvertently reward the wrong ones. This territory is tricky. Key principles. Use extrinsic rewards. Third, always try tapping into personal and social motivation first. Over-relying on external rewards, especially for tasks people already enjoy, can actually backfire. This is the over-justification hypothesis. Kids who got paid to play with a toy ended up playing with it less once the reward stopped. Use incentives wisely. When you do use them, make them small, immediate, gratifying, and clearly tied to the vital behavior itself, not just distant outcomes. Even small rewards, vouchers for cocaine addicts who stay clean, Starbucks cards for doctors who wash their hands, gold stars for Grameen bankers, can work powerfully if other motivations are already aligned. Often it's the symbolic value, not the actual cash, that matters. Reward vital behaviors, not just results. Rewarding only outcomes can accidentally incentivize cheating or cutting corners, like that factory producing record numbers of units, by sacrificing quality. Reward the process and effort that lead to good results, like the Japanese Kaizen example, where they rewarded the simple suggestion about saving tea. Watch for misaligned incentives. Are you rewarding thing A while secretly hoping for thing B? Like rewarding Vietnam soldiers for completing their tour of duty, not for mission success, which led to risk avoidance. Or are you unintentionally enabling bad behavior, like giving money to an addicted family member? Use punishments sparingly. It often causes unintended negative effects, like rebellion, damaged relationships, or learned helplessness. When necessary, provide clear warnings first, like that North Carolina crime program that showed drug dealers the mountain of evidence against them before prosecuting. When punishment is used for clear violations of core values, like firing someone for racist jokes, it does send a powerful message. Source 6. Structural ability. Change the environment. Do things in the physical world make the vital behavior easier or harder to do? This is often the most overlooked but incredibly powerful source, partly because we're what the authors call environmentally incompetent. We just don't notice how much our surroundings shape us. Think of William White's brilliant solution to restaurant chaos. The simple order spindle eliminated the need for confrontational shouting matches between stressed waitstaff and cooks. Strategies include: make the invisible visible. Use cues to bring unconscious behaviors or important data into awareness. Brian Wansink showed people ate less stale popcorn from smaller buckets, fewer chips if every 10th one was colored differently, and less soup from bowls that secretly refilled so they never looked empty. Emory Air Freight got shipping containers properly filled by adding a simple "fill to here" line. Hospitals reduced expensive glove waste by posting prices and improved hand hygiene by showing doctors petri dishes with photographs of bacteria grown from their own unwashed hands. Managing the data stream matters. Ensure people see timely, relevant information that supports vital behaviors, like Hopkins showing national leaders the true scale of guinea worm infections. Leverage propinquity, distance and space. Physical closeness breeds interaction, collaboration, and even liking. Distance breeds mistrust and silos. Delancey forces former rivals into close proximity as roommates and teammates. The decline of the family dinner table removes crucial interaction time. Smart companies co-locate teams or create common gathering areas, like HP's strategic break rooms, to foster collaboration. Eunice insisted borrowers meet regularly in dedicated spaces. Make it easy or harder. Use tools, processes, or the environment to make the right behavior the path of least resistance, and make the wrong behavior more difficult. The Carter Center developed better, durable cloth filters and drilled wells to make getting clean water easier than walking to contaminated ponds. Delancey makes getting drugs much harder by completely removing residents from their old environment. Wansink showed how smaller plates, opaque candy jars placed further away, and home exercise equipment positioned conveniently all quietly influence behavior. Hospitals use color-coded medication bottles to reduce errors. Stores strategically move treats to easier-to-reach shelves. Make it unavoidable. Use structure, routines, checklists, or automated systems to eliminate the possibility of doing the wrong thing. Think pilot checklists, fast food ordering systems, scheduled mandatory meetings, or Delancey's required games ritual for confronting issues head-on. The core message running through all of this: don't just pick your favorite strategy and hope for the best. Carefully diagnose all the forces currently enabling the unwanted behavior. Then build a comprehensive strategy that addresses multiple sources, likely all 6 of them, to motivate and enable those new vital behaviors. That's how you move from hoping and wishing for change to actually making change inevitable. Phew, that was quite a journey, wasn't it? We've traveled from the streets of San Francisco to remote villages in Africa and Asia, from psychology labs to bustling restaurants and corporate boardrooms. And through all these stories, Influencer delivers a message that manages to be both profoundly optimistic and deeply practical at the same time. What really strikes me about this book is how completely it shifts our perspective on change itself. It takes these massive, overwhelming problems: addiction, poverty, disease, organizational dysfunction, problems that make us feel tiny and powerless, and it breaks them down into manageable pieces. It shows us that beneath all that complexity often lie just a few critical behaviors. And more importantly, it hands us a map, those 6 sources of influence, a systematic way to understand why people do what they do, and a practical toolkit to help them and ourselves do things differently. It moves us away from the easy habit of blaming individuals, assuming they just lack willpower or character, and towards examining the entire system of forces surrounding them. Are they motivated personally, socially, structurally? Do they have the personal skills they need, the social support, the environmental setup that makes success easier? Simply asking these questions changes everything. It turns frustration into diagnosis, and wild guesswork into thoughtful strategy. For anyone feeling stuck right now, whether you're trying to adopt a healthier lifestyle, improve a difficult relationship, lead a team more effectively, or tackle some community issue, this framework is genuinely empowering. It suggests that influence isn't some mystical art reserved for naturally charismatic leaders. It's a science and a set of skills that anyone can learn and put to use. So how can you start using this right away? Let me suggest just a couple of simple steps. Pick one thing. Think about one persistent problem in your own life where you feel stuck. Maybe it's procrastinating on homework, not exercising regularly, or a frustrating communication pattern with someone important to you. Identify one vital behavior. Instead of trying to change everything at once, what's one specific action that, if done consistently, would make the biggest difference? Be really precise here. Not be healthier, but maybe walk for 20 minutes before dinner each day, or spend the first 15 minutes after getting home starting my hardest task. Run the diagnostic. Quickly think through those 6 sources. What's currently stopping you from doing that behavior? Is it motivation? You don't enjoy it. Your friends discourage it. There's no reward. Or is it ability? You lack the skill, don't have help from others, or the environment makes it ridiculously hard. Be brutally honest. What forces are actually working against you? Brainstorm one small change. Based on your diagnosis, what's one small thing you could change in one of those 6 sources to make that vital behavior even a little more likely? Maybe link it to something you value: personal motivation. Tell a supportive friend about your planned social motivation. Make it easier by setting out your walking shoes the night before. Structural ability? Don't try to boil the ocean here. Just start small, experiment, and learn from what happens. Because the real power of this book isn't just in understanding the theory. It's in realizing that you can become an agent of change in your own life. You don't have to stay stuck. You don't have to just accept things exactly as they are. By understanding and thoughtfully applying these principles, you truly gain the potential, step by step, to change almost anything. That was a glimpse into Influencer: The Power to Change Anything by Kerry Patterson and his colleagues. We've covered the core ideas today: finding vital behaviors, changing minds through experience, and leveraging those 6 powerful sources of influence. But honestly, a summary like this is just scratching the surface. The real depth, the truly transformative power, comes from diving into the stories and detailed strategies within the book itself. It's when you read about Dr. Silbert's specific methods, or Dr. Hopkins' incredible persistence, that the principles truly come alive and click into place. This overview is meant to light a spark, to help you figure out if this book's approach might be exactly what you're looking for. If you felt that spark today, if any of these ideas resonated with the challenges you're facing, I genuinely encourage you to pick up a copy. Reading it isn't just absorbing information. It's equipping yourself with a powerful new lens to see the world differently, and a practical toolkit to start actively shaping it. You can find a link to the book in the description below. Also, if this summary helped you or gave you something valuable to think about, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to the channel. We explore incredible books like this regularly, aiming to unpack the wisdom that can help us all lead more effective and fulfilling lives. Let's keep learning and growing together on this journey.